Welcome to Chromecast. Take it out. I'm Sam Mager, Chief Commercial Officer of Chrome Technologies. I'm joined once again by my business partner and CEO, Rupert Mills.
Thank you, Sam. Nice to be here.
It's always a pleasure to have you. So today, a bit of an interesting topic, they all are obviously, but we're talking about shadow AI.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's something we've seen, it's now really prevalent. Obviously, shadow IT was a big thing. People trying to find ways of doing stuff outside
Still is a big thing.
Still is a big thing. So now there's a new arm to that. So in the format of this podcast, give us kind of three things that you and I are going to babble on about today.
Yeah, so first of all, we'll talk about what is shadow AI. Then we'll talk about what are the risks of shadow AI. And then we'll talk about what do you do about it? How do you either enable it gracefully or govern it, or what do you do, basically? So,
cool. So I guess let's jump straight in there with a clarification of what is shadow AI.
So shadow AI is using AI in a method that your business is not aware of or isn't governing, or etc. So lots of businesses out there have AI policies now, or what do you do about using AI within your organization? Some people say, no AI at all. Some people say, okay, we're going to use Copilot, and we've enabled people to use Copilot.
Yeah.
Shadow AI is basically where employees will use the AI of their choice to do something because they think that that's the one they're familiar with. So it might be...
Surely not.
Yeah, exactly. So you might have someone in your creative team who says, oh, I'm going to do something with Midjourney, or you might have somebody in your legal team who says, I'm going to use, or HR team who says, I'm going to use Claude for something.
Yeah.
And if you haven't taken a view on saying, yes, they can use that and had a policy around it, then that's considered shadow AI.
And that's, it's fantastically easy for them to go and spend money on that, because these things, tokenized usage, etc.
Yeah.
It's very expensive.
A load of them are available for free, which is potentially even more dangerous
even
than
bigger
shadow
problem.
AI.
Yeah, absolutely. That's an even bigger problem with people jetting off corporate data to God knows where.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I guess the question is, and it's a bit like the shadow IT thing, is people are doing that for a reason.
Yeah.
And that is because, the business potentially, people are innovating. People are seeing how technology can make their job easier or make them more productive. And people are very much seeing that with the, AI is booming and it's super useful, right? So we're a Copilot house. It's a very useful tool. And we've got loads of customers that have gone through the due diligence of making sure they can use things like Copilot. However, I heard a great analogy for this the other day. It's like buying Office and expecting it to run everything for your business. And it will do most of it, but go and speak to creatives and they're probably going to want to use Adobe, and some of the guys are going to want AutoCAD and these other complementary products that help your business do more better. And that's what I'm seeing then with people looking at, ChatGPT or Claude or Perplexity or whatever, God, there's hundreds of them, take your pick.
Yeah, thousands now.
Yeah, and it's that, so we're enabling people with, hey, let's enable Copilot, and it's really good for doing internal simple tasks. But if you need some kind of deep thought, whatever you might, Midjourney is a great one for the creatives there. People will find a way to make their lives easier or make themselves more productive, whichever way you want to look at it. But I guess that's what we're seeing.
100%. And the challenge with that is that actually is what data are they putting into it and what are they doing with it? So actually, if you say someone's got a web browser and opened up, let's say Claude, for example, if you're not looking at how the data is getting in and out of Claude, you've got the challenge with AI in general, are they training on your data? So that's a big issue. Okay, who else has access to that data? What are you showing with it? Where is the data sovereignty for it? So is it in the US? Is it in the UK? Is it in the EU? There's all of those different kind of questions that are standard around IT, and IT is relatively well governed, or you'd hope it's relatively well governed around that stuff, but it's becoming very easy to start feeding data into AI, and AI can act with that data much more swiftly and in the same challenge of governing it when you're looking at, we've talked previously about governing data in your SharePoint or in your file shares or in your SQL servers, your Exchange servers, whatever, and people being able to search that with AI, and you want to make sure that internally within your organization, somebody doesn't find data they shouldn't find by using AI.
Yep.
So there's ways and means to do that. We've talked about that extensively. Actually, the issue is that you take shadow AI, you take some of your data and you put it outside, then there's that. I mean, if we talk about the risks, you've got risks of data exposure, but you've also got the risks of what the AI models could do internally. So, I mean, we've done some testing for clients quite a bit recently. And if I take one, for example, we found that they had exposed themselves to Claude, but via API. So Claude was able to directly interact with software within their organization that they weren't aware of because that had been done by someone in their team.
Yeah.
Done with good intention,
Oh, yeah.
but the risk is there then that Claude can actually be talking to their software and getting data in the background that they had no idea about because it's connected via API.
Yeah.
Now, if you take a look at something like OpenAI just this week, last week, with Hugging Face, and the fact that OpenAI basically were doing some testing internally on one of their latest models, and that model managed to break out of its own environment, finding a 0 day,
Yep.
go off and connect itself to Hugging Face to find some data it wanted, couldn't get into where it wanted in Hugging Face, so found another 0 day on its own and broke into Hugging Face. Now you turn around and think, actually bring those things and connect them back into your environment via Shadow AI and say, welcome, in you come.
Yeah.
And if there's a 0 day somewhere or something that allows that to go and exploit data and bring it out, if that's a model that says we're going to train on your data, who knows what's getting out there? So
Nice. Terrifying, isn't it?
yeah,
Skynet.
yeah, it really is. Yeah, yeah,
And,
absolutely.
yeah, and this is
With no metal men wandering around just yet.
just yet. Or Boston Dynamics. We'll
Yeah.
see to that. But yeah, and it's becoming, it's a more prevalent conversation that we're having with clients, because it's a lot of it is partially unknown because people are doing, as you say, best intentioned things.
Yep.
And plugging in a Claude or whatever it might be, producing some really good stuff, etc. But it's not stopping and asking that kind of risk and or compliance question, which I suppose brings us nicely onto the topic of the risks and compliance and how do we put some control and governance around that. But there's that happy medium bit, because the safe thing to do, right, is we just won't use AI, or we're only going to use Copilot. But like I said, people are resourceful. They'll find other ways.
Yeah, they will.
And it's a bit like, going back to just data, where you've got the DLP and the governance on. It's how do we apply that model, I suppose, to AI and enable rather than restrict safely. Yeah.
And you will find that there are people within your organization who have access to things who will use an AI model, even though you may have created a policy that says, we only use this AI, this is our corporate approved AI or whatever. There'll be people in the organization, quite often in relatively senior positions, who go, yeah, but that doesn't apply to me, I'm going to do this. And off it goes. And those are the people who have access to most sensitive data.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Yeah, So, yeah, I think in terms of governing that and in terms of looking at the compliance and governance risks with it. So right now in the UK, we don't have an AI Act in the UK. So it's perceived currently in current thinking that it's relatively unlikely we will take the EU AI Act and fold it into the UK. It's more likely that the UK regulators and authorities will use existing legislation and look at how to feed AI into that rather than create a UK AI Act. So you could say that actually we don't have that problem of the EU AI Act and needing to keep all that compliance data.
Yeah.
But as soon as you talk to a lot of our clients, they have offices in Europe or people in Europe, immediately you're inside the EU AI Act, their EU AI Act.
It's easy for you to say.
That's it. So immediately you're there. But even outside of that, there's a good chance that in 5 years' time, people are going to come to you and say, okay, you have AI in your organization. Can you prove that you're governing it? Can you prove that you're in control of it?
Yeah.
So even though we don't have a UK AI Act, you need to get your house in order right now and be able to say, okay, what are we doing and how are we doing it? So some sort of agreement with your organization to take potentially an AI policy wider and say, okay, this is the AI we use and by choice.
Yeah.
But instead of saying you can't use any other AI, it could be if you wish to use other AI, this is how you submit it to us to get approval. And then looking at, because if you look at the
case for each.
Yeah, exactly.
I think, because if we're honest about it, are you going to, people have become used to using it. I think it's brand, like you say, senior people that go, it speeds this up, let's go.
Yeah.
And we've seen that with kind of, in the early days of Copilot, where things were turned on far too quickly, that creates a problem in and of itself. And now it's a case we do a lot of work around Copilot readiness and actually making sure before you turn it on, using things like Purview or Varonis, and we've covered this sort of stuff in previous episodes, make sure your house is in order so that when someone does a request internally, they get access to the right data, getting the right results. But it's having that, as you say, that policy again for these other AI models and building that into a framework that you can educate your workforce on.
And keeping records of it, because part of that act is that part of the EU Act is that you need to keep records of the models you used and what data you gave it. So keeping records of it is important as well. Not that people are going to want to keep manual records, but finding a way to automate that record keeping. So whether you're using something like Purview or something like that to look at where your data's going. So,
well, like I said, there'll be an act of some sort coming at some point, and kind of being ahead of good governance. It's really important. And actually, so clearly as an MSP, we offer services where we can look at things like shadow AI uses, and that's a really interesting report. We've seen a few clients now. They go, look, we're a Copilot house. Oh, let's run this assessment for you, and let's just verify that. And you suddenly see gigabytes of data that are being sent off to all sorts of different AI models, and it just rams that home that the people will find a way. But it spotlight on it. That is exactly shadow AI. The people that are using kind of whatever they can, best intentions, but it's a real problem.
Yeah, I mean, we had a conversation with a client recently where they said, we're a Copilot house, but we've just had one of our subdivisions come back to us and say, oh, we've decided that we're going to use this AI. And they'd been using it for a while before they'd actually brought that to oversight of the senior or the parent organization.
Yeah.
And in that conversation, we said to them, okay, well, do you want us to run a shadow AI scan now? A what now? So we ran a shadow AI scan for them because they were like, oh, well, let's see how many of them have been using that other model. And suddenly they found that in their whole organization, there's something like 13% of people who'd gone outside of the AI governance and were using all different models. And it would have been from HR departments to IT departments to senior people within the organization, all the way through to bits of the organization they'd not heard of or thought of, that were using serious amounts of AI outside, connecting it via APIs, uploading gigabytes and gigabytes of data to it that were potentially sensitive. It's a big issue.
Okay, so I guess let's focus in on the last bit, which is taking control. So we can assess, we can work out. So we can have a policy. We can say we're going to be a Copilot house, and we can guide people how to use that. People will find a way of using other stuff. So then it's okay, build some frameworks of how and so on. But many people watching this will probably be in a position of maybe have done the first bit. So maybe we've got Purview or Varonis, whatever it is, we've safely launched Copilot, but now we have a resourceful workforce that are using other tools, potentially connected by API and all these other things. So we can run assessments, we can work out what other AI tools are in flight and being utilized.
And risk assess them, because some of them will be perfectly fine to use. And actually you just need to say, right, we are using that model, let's be aware of it. Others will be a serious risk. So some of the offshore AI models that will train on anything and use your data for however they want, and people will go, oh, well, that's quite a cool tool, I've used that, let's connect it up at work.
Problem. So then how do we control? How do we help our clients get this under control?
I think it's awareness and training, basically. So you need to enable the users, because if you try and control it and say no, as you said multiple times, they'll find a way. So you need to enable it, because let's face it, as an organization, if you don't enable it, the chances are you're going to fall behind your competition as well.
That is the problem.
People are
the big driver.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I had a chat with a guy just the other day. He said, no, I've said to everybody in my organization, no AI. And then he realized that all his new policy documents he's asked the team to create were created by AI. So enable people, train them on why they need to make you aware and why they need to, and then run scans in the background to keep an eye on it and pick up the ones that don't fit within that model would be my suggestions to start with. Be aware, be ready, so that when in 5 years' time someone comes to you and says, what are you doing with AI? What are you using? And you don't just go, oh yes, we're using Copilot, and then they run a scan and go, but what about all of this? It's going to be, I suspect at some point it will show up in things like Cyber Essentials or ISO 27001 or NIS2. As the regulations catch up, you're going to find all this stuff appearing in there of explain this, show us that. In the same way right now, they talk about DLP, they talk about antivirus, all those other things. They're going to start talking around, show us your controls and governance around AI. So if you're doing business in any of those areas which require you to be governed, get ahead of it.
Get ahead of it, because that's coming, but also from the perspective of let's make sure we're not training you know, an AI model we don't want to be training. Let's make sure our staff are using it resourcefully, absolutely intelligently, getting the best out of it. And like you say, you're going to have to look at different models. We've said before, Office doesn't do everything for all departments. So you might need to have a multi-AI environment. Copilot's very good, but you might need OpenAI, you might need Claude, or whatever it's going to be, right? Assess what your business needs and then build the AI model to fit. And then you won't completely because people are people, but you should build a really good model then that enables your staff to be a bit more dynamic and resourceful, get things done faster, better, whatever it might be, but within some parameters that you control.
Absolutely. And try and make sure, if you're opening yourself up to an AI, that it's also one that's not going to come in and try and do something internally nefarious. Where are you connecting it to and what are you connecting it to?
Yeah.
So
brilliant.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you, Rupert.
Welcome.
And thank you for joining us on this edition of Cramcast. If there's anything you'd like us to cover in future episodes, please do know in the comment sections below. Like, subscribe and share, and join us again on Cramcast. Check it out.